Well, hello everyone, and welcome along to Unplugged, two in a row as we enter a very tricky month ahead. It is going to be a fascinating watch. The Richmond belting, not unexpected, but at the same time impressive. 93 points after half time in that game, turning an 8-point lead into an 82-point win. And yes, Richmond are going to get belted a little bit, and yes, they are the spoon favourites, and it's not a knock on them by any means, but you've still got to get the job done. First time kicking 20 goals in a few years and biggest win in a decade. So nothing to be sneezed at. Good even contributions, midfield strong, forwards all contributing. So can't really mount too many negatives out of that other than a little asterisk around the expectation on the Tigers. But when you back up the Geelong win from the week before, which was super impressive, it's obviously been a very good fortnight. And that Adelaide loss, I guess, looking a tiny little bit more like the circumstantial defeat that we probably thought it might have been at the time, Adelaide flying, and clearly we were underprepared heading into that game. Nick, we're all sitting in relatively close proximity, but we lost Jack Steele before the bounce very, very late in the warm-up. Must admit that probably raised the nerve levels a little bit in terms of making it a bit more of a danger game, especially when you looked at centre bounces and had, Garcia and Travalia and these sorts of players. You're thinking, geez, we're pretty raw in the middle, but in the end, it didn't matter.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's definitely some red flags there, especially when you think back to last year when, ideally we went into the year with kind of two midfield bulls in Steele and Crouch, and then Crouch is out for essentially the whole year. And we saw what that did to our midfield pressure, our clearance work, stoppage, around the ground, etc. And so that was a real worry as to, I guess, how McRae would kind of handle that on his own and whether he could pull some of the young kids through. And I think we answered some of those questions and kind of answered the test. I guess it was a worry, like you said, but seeing some centre bounces with Travalia, Garcia, and a few of those young blokes pushing through there was really promising. I do think that in times in that first half that it did feel like they got on top of us in the middle a little bit, and Marshall's influence was curtailed because we couldn't get his hands on the ball. And they've got some. I know they're a really young team, but they've still got some experienced big bodies in the middle there. And it did feel at times like they were just winning the contested ball for a little while, but clearly we were able to kind of turn that around in the second half. And I was really impressed with a lot of the young blokes, but I did feel like that middle tier, the guys that aren't, under 10 games and the guys that aren't 200 games, it was those guys in the middle tier, the 50 to 150 kind of tier, that really stood up and kind of weathered the storm, so to speak. And I was just really impressed with the effort, the intensity, and how they worked themselves into a position of dominance, because it wasn't always one-way traffic, right? Like I said, the first half was scrappy, it was tough. Momentum shifted a couple of times. They'd kick a few, we'd kick a few, they'd kick a few more, we'd kick a few more. And it wasn't easy. It certainly wasn't easy in that first half, but they were able to kind of work their way into a position of just absolute dominance. And maybe their young team tired throughout the second half and whatever. But ultimately, this is the first time in a long time that I've seen a St Kilda team put their foot down right to the final siren. And that was just really, really pleasing to see that these kids, our team was incredibly young too, let's not forget. But these kids really wanted to put the foot on the throat and drive home the fact that we're a better team and that we deserve to win. And we deserve to win by a lot. And they did that. And that was just really encouraging.
It felt like 3 years ago, maybe even last year, we might have won that game, 11 goals, 17 to 7 goals, 8, and, won by 5 or 6 goals, and we're clearly the better side, but it was just a bit rough and scrappy. Whereas that was clean and fast and ruthless and dominant, which if you're going to play a side that you expect to be better than, you've got to do that. And that was an impressive victory.
Now, I think I said to you at some stage during the first half, it seems to be that we play a great team. Like we played Geelong last week, we lifted and we played good football. We play a team that we should beat, and we seem to be dragged down to their level at times, and we'll scrap it out and pull the win out by, well, we we might get 7 goals ahead and then win by 4 in the end, or we'll scrap out a 4-goal win by kicking the last couple late or something. But yeah, we got to half time, and I think it was just a case of we wore them down in that half. They threw everything they had at us in that half of football. We've come out and gone, yep, right. We've put you onto the game, but just run rampant in the second half. I mean, it was almost a case of we doubled our score from half time to 3-quarter time, and then went on again in the last quarter, even better on top of that. So it was we ran the game out well. We ran basically all over the top of them in that second half of football, and that's what we should be doing to teams in that kind of situation. And we haven't done that for a long time now. As I said, we've managed to get a long way ahead of teams in the past how many years now and not finish it off. They come back at us. We sort of just stop and go, okay, we've done enough. But no, we went, yep, all right, we're going to finish this game off. We're going to win each quarter and just put the foot to the throat and actually demolish the side. And it's great to finally be able to do that. And it's good to go into a game knowing that, yeah, we had a bit of confidence that it would be a, I guess, percentage booster. And yeah, they delivered despite the fact, as you're saying, losing Steele early on and moves everything around. And we was, still able to do exactly what we set out to do.
Now, Toby Travalia, 18 touches on debut, was originally going to be the sub, but Steele's injury pushed him into the lineup, and then Hasty became the sub. Collard, you don't see many guys kick round the body snaps from 45 metres out. That was an impressive finish, and he probably built on last week's game, where obviously showed a bit against the Cats, but looked a little bit better even, in this one. In terms of getting possessions, obviously that run-down tackle was particularly impressive for a young player. Garcia, and some career-high numbers for him. Owens 2 weeks have been really good since coming back. He's led that forward line in both matches. And yeah, it's interesting, Caminiti, Nick, before we get into some of the votes, he was thrown back sort of halfway through the Crows game, and that was a bit of a baptism of fire. And last year he had to play on Joe Danaher at times, which was tough. But last 2 weeks he's looked like a natural defender. It looks like that's his home, to be honest.
Yeah, he 100% is a defender now. In my eyes, anyway. I mean, I was a bit shocked that we played him forward in round one, but clearly we had no one to play forward, and he kind of in that regard on his own as the key defender anyway. But he hasn't looked back ever since. I mean, I thought he was serviceable, like you said. He was under pressure from the get-go in that Crows game, but last week against the Cats and again this week, he just looks composed, and he's not quite Josh Battle just yet, but he's played 10 games as a defender, maybe not even 10 games, and I think that he looks really promising. He's reading the ball well. We know that he attacks the ball, he attacks the man, attacks the contest really hard. Josh tended to stay a little bit out of the contest and be that kind of third man, floating across the contest, take the mark, intercept type stuff. Whereas Hammer does that, but he can also play on the man quite well and use his body, and he's still going to bulk up a little bit more, I expect, and get heavier and stronger for those one-on-ones. But I've been really impressed with Hammer, and I don't even think about him as a swingman anymore. I think about him as a defender. Like, this guy is a key defender, and he looks like a natural. It's like he's been playing there his entire life and was a defender in juniors and has played the first few years of his career as a defender. It doesn't look like he's played 10 games or less as a defender. It seems to suit him, and we might have found one a little bit like we did with Battle, drafted as a forward and shifted back because we couldn't quite get it to work for his talent as a forward. But yeah, I think we might have found one, and I'm not saying he's going to be the answer to our prayers as a key defender, but if he can be a second or third key tall for the next 6, 8, 10 years, then I think we're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah. A little bit of self-interest and self-preservation, being able to move into that position too, because as soon as you get the likes of King available, his name is the one that's thrown around the table going, okay, is he who is out? he's been able to find that position now and go, no, I'm going to lock down this position and I'm not going to be moved from it. And it surprised just about everyone, I think. It was a bit like when it first happened in Brisbane, everyone's thinking, oh, what's happening here? We're in real trouble if he's down there. But the confidence is there now going, hang on, he can defend. He's down there and he's looking like has that ability to hold that position. He'll be able to take that bigger ball, that big defender. He's still young. He'll put a bit more bulk on himself probably a little bit over time. And yeah, we'll finally have someone that'll wrestle with those big guys and be able to control them.
Yeah, I think the important thing as well is that if he can take one of those key roles with Wilkie back there, I mean, obviously we've got Dougal Howard coming back at some stage. We don't know exactly when, but he's going to be rusty at least for a while. It's been a while since Dougal's played, but it also allows Taru to come back in, and I think they've kind of earmarked him for a defensive role, but a tall, intercept mark, someone who doesn't have to get as physically involved as a key defender, and have the ability to be a swingman and push forward and hit, get down the wing and all that type of stuff. Use his athleticism, etc. Because we don't need to throw into the fire as a key defender. I just wanted to say, Parko, you touched on Collard and that rundown, the chase and tackle. I thought Collard's intensity and effort all game was superb. And obviously he finished off. He kicked 2 goals too, hit the scoreboard, which he did last week as well against the Cats. But I think that was quite easily Collard's best game. And not just because he hit the scoreboard and had 4 shots at goal and all that sort of stuff, but it was those defensive efforts. It wasn't just the one. It was just the one chase and tackle. There was a number of defensive efforts and pressure and harass. We know that small forwards and dynamic forwards, etc., aren't going to hit the scoreboard every week. But if they can continue putting that pressure on and chasing, harassing, pressuring, etc., then they're going to keep their role in the team regardless, because they're doing those things. Saw him attempt smothers, saw him tackling, which we didn't see from him at all last year, even in the twos, really. So for him to come in and show that sort of level of what I'd call maturity, which sounds strange when we're talking about Lance Collard based on how we talked about him last year, but I thought that performance showed real maturity for a young kid, and I was far more impressed than I expected to be on Collard.
Yeah, I thought he looked a mile off it last year, like as far away as he could possibly be. But obviously early this season, very different. Looks a much more competent and settled AFL player. Special mention to Liam O'Connell, who was only out there for 10 minutes, but he's building a good reputation for, being prepared to put the body on the line. Took the match saver against Geelong and then went in. He was going back with the flight anyway, regardless of the bump from the Richmond fella. He was going back anyway, so which is probably what makes the suspension slightly harsh. And that collision might have been happening anyway, but in any case, whatever, it's not our problem. But looking at the votes, sort of reflecting on that particular game, so I gave a 3 and 7 1s out of that game. I'll start with the 7 1s. Jimmy Webster, I actually thought, an underrated game from him. I know he puts that type of performance up most weeks, but I thought he was pretty solid in marshalling that defence. Jack McRae gets another vote for another 30-possession game. The bloke who shouldn't be playing midfield. Hammer gets a vote for another strong defensive role. On Tom Lynch, admittedly, Lynch has hardly played in the last couple of years and he's 32 and more interested in belting people, but that's still a reasonable performance from Caminiti in any case. Mason Wood, I thought, was terrific. Like, everything he did had enormous influence, kicked 3 goals and had a real hand in plenty of other scoring role. And look, he shows that he's a very good high half forward and a very good wingman. So you kind of wish you could play him in 2 positions at once. Wanganeen Miller, silk again, 29 possessions, so creative. Mitch Owens marshalling that forward line, 4 goals in the second half, could have kicked 6 or 7, gave a couple away. He's looked really strong. Rowan Marshall worked right on top in that ruck contest and was pivotal by the end. but it's hard not to go past Jack Sinclair. 3 votes. He had 40 possessions, the career high. Tremendous effort, 28 kicks, really had a hand in a number of inside 50s and scoring, and his delivery was elite. So he gets the 3 votes for my mind, Nick.
Pretty similar. I mean, honourable mentions to Hammer and Naz. I thought they were okay. I thought Hammer was really good. I gave 1 vote to Higgins, Wood, and Owens, and I just thought the combination of those 3 as well, outside of just their individual performances, the way that those guys fine and all play their role in a forward line that needs them to play roles at the moment because we're undermanned and understaffed and all those sorts of things. I thought they were very, very good. Owens continues to grow into that role as that kind of, I don't know, bull forward. He's not a full forward. He's a bull forward because he just sits the contest and just causes chaos. And it's so fun to watch. And again, I used that word mature for Lance Collard earlier. I think Mitch Owens is maturing in front of our eyes as a forward. Really impressive, mature performance from Machito. I gave 2 votes to Rowan Marshall and Jack McRae. Again, I mean, those 2 already look like they've been playing together for a decade. And I think that goes to show that, the intelligence, but also the quality of those 2 guys as individuals and players. They're just incredible players. And I think we're lucky to have both of them. And like you said, 3 votes to Jack Sinclair, who was just a step above everybody else on the field on Saturday night. He was just imperious, I think the word is. He was everywhere. He did everything. Beautiful user of the ball, played majority of the game, half-back through the middle and the wing, got forward and centre again to deliver inside 50. He's just such an important player, and he's probably still underrated around the league as well.
H, your 10?
Yeah, a few names repeated in this one. So, won the Woody. Did his job, popped up everywhere. He finds the slots that a lot of other players, I wouldn't say they don't work hard to get to or anything like that, but he's just able to do it and keeps getting there and giving that option. And he pops up when we need him. 1 to Marshall. It's just continuing on with what he's been doing all year. The what he provides us, what he gives to us every week in, week out is just amazing. 1 the Naz, worked hard, used the ball well, moved around the ground, moved us into attack, just keeps running. 1 the Mitch, I reckon if his goals had come earlier in the match, he may be bumped up a little further. His last 2 goals were fantastic. The snap around the corner, and then I don't know how he got that mark on the line in that last one. That was a magic trick. That one that came out of nowhere. And as described by, I heard someone say, he was like a little Jack Russell, but Hugo Garcia. The way he ran around the ball, he was bouncing, he was jumping off everyone. He just bundle of energy on the weekend, and it was just great to watch. And he was the one a lot of people saying watch out for this year, is the one who will give us a bit of spark, a bit of excitement, and it's starting to pop out. It's starting to show. He's going to be quite exciting to watch, and he's quite excited himself at times, it looks like. So it's great to watch that. Tuna McGray, workhorse. There's nothing much more to say about it. He just goes in and does it every week in, week out, and it's the recruitment of him is amazing. I was actually sitting there watching the Bulldogs game, getting towards the end of the night, and thinking they'd like someone Jay McRae. Friday night. They'd probably like someone named Jay McRae out there at the moment just to get him over the line, but luckily they did. And 3 to 6, amazing game. Just compiled stats. Just found the ball wherever he could. Just popped up, took it. Just did whatever he wanted to on the night, and that's the things that we had before, the couple of niggles that he had, and hopefully that means he's back.
Yeah, it looks that way. Obviously very good against Geelong, and then built nicely into this clash against Richmond. The Jason Blake Award, I gave one to a guy I really wanted to give votes to. I think he's been very impressive across his 3 games so far, and that's Max Hall. I think Very good against the Crows, did his job against Geelong and was really influential again here. He looks really comfortable. He's building. He's got a bit of pace. He's good around goals. So didn't get a mention, but certainly worthy of one. H, your Jason Blake?
Again, probably someone that I wanted to give a vote to, but I just couldn't quite fit it in. I reckon if he was on a informed forward and did that job, I would have been implored to keep him out. But yeah, he's down there and doing that every week. Yeah, there'll be nowhere to fault him, and hopefully we don't have to keep putting him in here, and he gets a bit of recognition for the work he's doing in there. And yeah, it'll be great to see him. Yeah, just keep a few of the bigger names as well, goalless or very well under control in the games ahead.
Nick?
Perhaps controversial. I've given the Jason Blake award this week to Jack Higgins. I just feel like he's probably the informed small forward of the competition. If not number one, then in the top three, I reckon. He's if he keeps this type of pace and trajectory, he'd almost be a lock for all Australia. I know it's early in the year and so many things can change, especially with small forwards. But in a time where we have been screaming out for stability in a forward line and for someone to step up and provide leadership and, just be able to do the things that are needed when they need to happen. Jack Higgins has stepped up time and time again over the last few weeks and made things happen. Hit the scoreboard, obviously, that's his number one role, but he's also buzzing around like that annoying blowfly. He's a pest to defenders. He's a pest to annoying teams. He's a pest to opposition fans and all those things that the best small forwards do. The best small forwards in history have been the ones that opposing fans hate. And Jack Higgins is becoming that player. He's always been a little bit like that, but he's certainly becoming more and more like that, like your Stevie Milne type character, getting in people's faces and, chirping and all those sorts of things. And the last couple of weeks, I think we've probably mentioned him a couple of times, but he doesn't seem to be getting the media plaudits that, your Naz and Sinks and Marshall and Owens and those guys have gotten over the last fortnight or so. But he's been just as important as those guys because he's kept us in line, as a forward line. We've had a bit of a rotating forward line for the last few weeks, since the start of the season, and he's been a really stable, solid, strong part of that. And it's been so important.
100%. Yeah, I think that's a very good shout. He's been a genuine class player. I mean, he's kicked multiple in all three, 9 goals in 3 rounds. So he's having an enormous influence. The Shannon Noel, or the Lift Award, if you will, Nick, if you wanted to hold the floor.
Yeah, again, potentially controversial. Nasiah Wanganeen-Miller is a budding superstar. If he's not a superstar straight out, he's a budding superstar at the very least. Last week, I think we all want to see him take the risky kick and the the instinctive option, because we know how good he is and how good he is by foot and all those sorts of things. But the last couple of weeks have just kind of seen creep into his game just some poor decision making. He does what he does really well, but I think he's tended to take a little bit too much. He's taken not liberties. Liberties probably too strong, but he's bitten off a little bit more. Yeah, bitten off a little bit more than he can chew. And going inboards to a 3-on-1 is not the smart option, no matter how good you are. Sometimes he just has to do the percentage thing and the easy option, which is just kick it down the line. He doesn't have to take that Hollywood kick every single time. He's going to hit that kick 8 out of 10 times probably, but those 2 that he missed have the ability to go back and hit us, going the other way on the scoreboard, especially when you're at halfback, like I said, going inboard to a 3-on-1. It's not ideal. And you just hope that that's just, he's just been trying some things or whatever, trying to make things happen. I know, the first half was scrappy and tough, and he was, and I love that about him. sometimes you just got to rein it in just a little bit and rein in that instinct to take that Hollywood kick and just do the percentage thing and kick it long down the line and let your forwards compete and all that sort of stuff. I've got no doubt he's gonna be fine. Discussions and all those sorts of things, but just something that I kind of noticed over the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, and as you say, easier to fix decisions rather than being a bad kick. So, that's something that could be tweaked, thankfully. H, your Shannon Noel?
We all need to lift the curse. Get rid of it. Stop losing to Port Adelaide. It's got to stop. Let's go over there and get a win. I mean, yes, our last 2 wins against them have now and 15 years ago or 14 years ago. Let's do it. Let's beat them. Let's get this monkey off the back and turn the ledger, start getting it back our way. At the moment, it's 26-11.
And we won the first 5.
And most of ours came early days. So it's been pretty ordinary against them. Let's lift this bloody curse and get a win over them. That's as simple as it is.
It's huge. I'll touch more on that in a minute. But mine, I did this on a different podcast today, or a day or so ago. But mine is it's completely non-St Kilda related. But media talking about media and media, interviews around, here's this journalist burying the hatchet with this coach, and here's this journalist talking about this journalist and ranking their favourite commentators. I'll give you all a tip. Nobody gives a fuck. Nobody. Like, it's just ego-driven rubbish. And look, as somebody who works in the industry, we're not the stars. So it's just, I wanted to rant on a second medium about that. We aren't the stars, and that's okay. We're in a privileged position to cover a game that we love, but they are the stars, and we cover the game, and no one cares who we are, and that's okay. But I think so many people don't accept that. But anyway, turning our attention, we were lucky enough to catch up with Brad Crouch. We can hear that full interview as a separate podcast. We'll give you a little teaser, a little snippet of that here, reflecting on some of his time with the Saints, and very good, honest chat with Brad Crouch.
Yeah, it was weird. It was, like the club were really good. They let me, I guess, hold on. Well, not hold on, but it was more so for me. I was just going for every avenue I could to try and save it in some way, or make sure that I was totally stuffed, to be honest. So a lot of that sort of really dragged out because, I ended up going, I think, to 5 different surgeons about opinions about, what if I should play on or not, or even try. And all 5 of them said, you just give it up virtually and retire. So then we had to do it. A lot of it was like documentation and, having to put all that in. And the fact was that I was contracted as well for the next season. So that's the hardest thing. I think if I wasn't contracted, they wouldn't have even offered me a contract because I was on thin ice in terms of my body. I couldn't run. So it sort of did drag out. But like I get in the back of my mind, I knew I was pushing it uphill big time. But the club were really good in terms of providing every sort of way I could have, or anyone that could have given me a chance, but I couldn't find anyone.
So there is Brad Crouch. You can catch that full podcast. We'll turn our attention quickly to the clash with Port Adelaide. Huge opportunity for the club. It's a big month ahead, but it is a weird bogey side because bogey sides are generally sides that you're a horrible matchup on. That's not the case here with Port. We usually play at their level, and basically over that entire tenure where they've beaten us for 15 years, they've been better than us almost that entire time. They've been a top 4 side most of the last 5 or 6 years, whereas we've been sort of scratching around the 8. So the expectation is that they should beat us, but they beat us by 5 points, 2 points, 1 point, 6 points. So we actually fend okay for ourselves in the matchup. We just find ways to lose from improbable positions. So it's not a case of, geez, we never handle Port. We handle them okay. We just don't win. And it's unbelievably frustrating. So it's really a case of, make sure one of these tips your way. That they were pretty ordinary on Thursday night against the Bombers, and they were pretty ordinary in round 1 against Collingwood. Yes, they were better against Richmond at home, but we're going to see a bit of that. It is a winnable game. Their forward potency has been hurt a little bit by injuries. They've got a couple out in the middle. Still a good side, and they tore us to shreds in the pre-season, but obviously our pressure was pretty average on that occasion. So it's a massive little juncture in our season, the chance to go 3-1, beat a side that always beats us. And if we were to win a game, I think we said this last year and it didn't happen, but if you could nominate a home and away game to win, it's this one for 1,000 reasons. I'd take a win in this game over a win over Collingwood or Carlton, to be honest. Just get the job done here and really set yourselves up. But Nick, your thoughts? Because as I say, it's not a bad matchup for us. We just don't win.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. I'm not sure how much I've got to add there. I think that that's the reality, is that we have come so close so many times, and it's not, like you said, because they've been so much better than us that they've just continued to win all these times. It's that they've just pulled it out in the last minute or two, and we've seen so many of those ones where we've been in front with 2 minutes to go or 3 minutes to go, and if not in front, then at least within a goal or so, and just to continually drop the bundle in some amazing ways. I mean, the one that comes to mind was the rider, Robbie Gray.
Yeah.
That was just an unbelievable piece of footy, but it feels like it could only have happened against us. And we just let that, we let that moment happen against us time and time again against this footy club. And I'm not sure I'd take a win over Port over a win over Carlton or Essendon, but it'd be close. They'd be up there. They'd be up there. But I think we do match up on them well. I think we generally play the ground pretty well. It's got the space. We know how to use the space. We use the wings. We've got the runners. We've got the athletic squad profile to play this ground well. We've got the makeup to match up pretty well with this team. And we've seen them, a couple of times. They're not playing great footy at the moment. And I think everyone's kind of expecting them to bounce back this week because isn't that hashtag that's so St Kilda. But, I just think there's no reason we can't win this game. I just don't see one other than history and the curse. And, if we turn up and play with the same intensity that we played in the first half against Geelong and the second half against Richmond, then I fully expect us to be really competitive away from home against a more experienced, whatever you want to call it, team that had higher expectations for the season. And I want to go in there. I want to go in there and win. I don't want to go in there and just show up. I want to go in there and win. And I think that we're a really good shout at that if we turn up.
H, it's I think you alluded to it in your Shannon Knoll, but surely, I don't know, we've just had an election called, but surely it's time, you would think.
Yeah, well, things have to happen occasionally, and that's what we can go in with. Like that, they looked very ordinary last week, to be honest, and they fell away at the end really badly. If we've got this fitness we talk about, this running ability, this ability to run out a match and finish strongly, then we turn around what's happened to us most recently. We turn around that whole we're not finishing against them and that they run it over. Just though on the hard surface they looked slow, which is it's not a usual thing. Usually games there look quicker. They look like players are running on top of the ground, but they just looked boggy and couldn't move the ball well. And I mean, yes, it was Essendon didn't contribute to that much as well. They looked pretty ordinary at the same time. But if that turns up, hey, there is a lot of confidence in our guys to go, we'll beat that. And it'd be great to do. So taking that same intensity we've seen in the last few weeks, and hey, we're more than a shot at it.
There's a stack of listener questions that we've got coming through. One from a Philip D asking when's Phil Deladakis back, asking for a friend. So it's marginally suspicious. Ricky asking how do we balance feeling pleasure at the Saints being 2-1 and Carlton being 0-3. It's a tough choice. Yeah, it is. Good question on Max Hall asking whether he will keep Butler out of the side, and that's a valid question. Tony also looking at Caminiti, Dougal, Howard and Wilkie making a very awesome defensive unit. We'll get to some of these by replying directly on the socials as well. Brett makes a good point about the narrative of St Kilda not attracting players. I get the feeling if you elect to stay at your own club, that's a very good point from Brett. It's not like they're going, oh, well, I'll play for Essendon instead. They just don't leave, which is a loyal thing to do. That's got very little to do with us, I would imagine. So I think that's a very well argued point. And talking about Keeler and King functioning in the same forward line, look, probably not at this stage, but that's not to say that it can't in future. Jason says, does Hugo stay as a starting mid when Steele comes back? Look, I think that's his role, whether he's a sub or in the middle, but, I think he stays in the side. And yeah, just some general comments on some of what we were talking about, and probably a good one to finish. Tim asking if we've got a witch doctor on staff to christen Adelaide Oval or do something with that, mainly the Port Adelaide end, and try to get something like that sorted. But we'll address a lot of those. Plenty coming through. Obviously, plenty of enthusiasm around the group. We build towards a huge month, but starting with this vital clash against Port Adelaide. Looking forward to it, and go Saints.